Hey there. So picture this. You're a subject in a vast, sprawling empire. You speak a different language, you worship a different god, you follow customs that your rulers have never even heard of. And then the imperial decree arrives. Your heart sinks, right? You brace for the worst. For forced conversion, for cultural erasure, for the boot of conformity. But instead, the decree says, carry on. Keep your god, keep your language. Just pay your taxes and don't rebel. What just happened? Were you just shown profound moral respect? Or were you just brilliantly marketed to? Welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Empire Builders, the rise and fall of civilizations from light, not studios. And today, we're diving into one of history's most fascinating political innovations, the Achaemenid Tolerance Policy. Under rulers like Cyrus the Great and Darius I, the Persian Empire, which at its height stretched from the Balkans to the Indus Valley, didn't just conquer. It curated. It managed an unbelievable mosaic of peoples: Egyptians, Babylonians, Greeks, Lydians, Medes, dozens more, by, seemingly, letting them be. The question for us, 25 centuries later, is this: was that tolerance a genuine moral principle, or was it simply the most effective branding campaign the ancient world had ever seen? Let's start with the evidence, because it is both compelling and literally set in stone. The Cyrus Cylinder, often called the first charter of human rights, records Cyrus's conquest of Babylon in 539 BCE. After taking the city, he did something no previous Mesopotamian conqueror had done. He didn't enslave the population or destroy their temples. Instead, he repatriated displaced peoples, like the Jews exiled in Babylon, and funded the rebuilding of their sanctuaries. He proclaimed that he restored the gods of Sumer and Akkad to their rightful shrines. He presented himself not as a foreign oppressor, but as a liberator, a restorer of local order. This was revolutionary, and it wasn't just Cyrus. Look at the administrative genius of Darius I. He divided the empire into satrapies, provinces governed by Persian officials, but the day-to-day laws, the legal codes that people lived by, those were local. The Aramaic language was the lingua franca for administration, but there was no forced Persianization. They built roads, yes, the famous Royal Road, but not to move armies, primarily to move information and facilitate trade. The empire ran on a system of relative cultural autonomy. So if it walks like tolerance and talks like tolerance, is it tolerance? Well, let's put on our strategist hats for a moment. The Achaemenids were empire builders on a scale never before attempted. Holding this vast territory with pre-modern communication was a logistical nightmare. Crushing every local custom would have meant perpetual rebellion. It would have been exhausting, expensive, and ultimately unsustainable. The policy of tolerance was, from a purely pragmatic standpoint, brilliantly efficient. It lowered the cost of governance. It turned potential rebels into tax-paying subjects. It allowed a relatively small Persian elite to manage a gigantic population by outsourcing cultural authority to local priests and elders. In this light, tolerance looks less like a moral awakening and more like a supremely clever management tactic. It was the ancient equivalent of a multinational corporation adopting a globalization strategy, global reach with local feel. The morality, one could argue, was just a happy byproduct of excellent realpolitik. But to stop there feels incomplete, doesn't it? It reduces a profound historical anomaly to mere calculus. And I think that misses something crucial about the Achaemenid self-conception. Look at their art and inscriptions at Persepolis. The famous reliefs don't show scenes of battle or subjugation. They show representatives from every corner of the empire, each in their distinct native dress, bringing gifts, supporting the throne. The message is one of harmonious, voluntary federation under the King of Kings. The official royal ideology, rooted in Zoroastrian thought, positioned the monarch as a figure maintaining Asha, which is cosmic order and truth against chaos. A chaotic empire, torn by religious strife, is an empire failing its cosmic purpose. So tolerance wasn't just a policy. It was a performance of kingly virtue, a demonstration that the monarch was so powerful he didn't need to homogenize to rule. The morality was in the performance itself. It became part of their identity. This is where it gets personal for me. As someone who's moved between worlds, growing up in Bangladesh, building a life in New York, Working in the global languages of engineering and business, I see this tension between marketing and morality every single day. In our modern world, we're deeply cynical about power. When a company or a government promotes diversity and inclusion, our first instinct is to ask, is this real or is this PR? We dissect the motive, and that's a healthy skepticism. But living within the Achaemenid Empire, for an average Jewish person returning to Jerusalem or a Babylonian priest keeping his temple, the motive of the king in far-off Persepolis might have been less important than the reality of their lived experience. They got to keep their identity. The policy, regardless of its origin in the imperial mind, created a space for pluralism to exist. The effect, for centuries, was real. The moral impact on human lives was tangible. Perhaps that's the most important lesson from the Achaemenid experiment. In history, and in our lives today, the line between pragmatic strategy and genuine principle is almost always blurred. The most enduring systems are those where the two align, where what is right and what is effective become the same thing. The Achaemenids found, almost by accident, that tolerance could be the glue of empire. It was marketing of the highest order, yes, but it was also a form of morality that emerged from the practical need to rule a diverse world. They understood that empire wasn't just about control, it was about coordination. And you can't coordinate people who are constantly fighting for their cultural survival. So, was the Achaemenid Tolerance Policy marketing or morality? My takeaway is this: it was both. And its genius lies in that very fusion. It reminds us that the most powerful ideas in history aren't just heartfelt philosophies or cold strategies. They are the ideas that manage to be both at once. Ideas that shape behavior because they make sense for the heart and the spreadsheet. The Achaemenids built their empire not just on the strength of their armies, but on the powerful, flexible, and enduring idea that people, when left to their own devices in matters of faith and custom, are far more likely to be productive and peaceful subjects. That's an insight that resonates loudly across the centuries. Thank you for listening. If this exploration of ancient power and principle resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share the episode with someone else who loves history's big questions. For more deep dives into the civilizations that shaped our world, make sure you're following the show. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this has been Empire Builders, a production of Light Knot Studios. Visit us at lightknotstudios.com. Until next time, take care.